Good afternoon. We're going to go ahead and get started. We've got a number of folks in the room and online today, so we appreciate you all being here. My name is Lauren Williams. I'm Adult and Community Services Manager with the Columbia Public Library, which is part of the Daniel Boone Regional Library System. Welcome to today's Lunch and Learn with DeMarcus Thomas Brown, the City of Columbia's first Office of Violence Prevention Administrator. Also, he has endeared himself to me by calling the library a gem and telling me how much he appreciates it. So we love him already. So today's Lunch and Learn is hosted by the library and the League of Women Voters of Columbia. So as you have people attending both in person and via Zoom, a couple of Zoom housekeeping items. If you're on Zoom and want to ask a question, there is a chat. Use that feature and use the drop-down menu to select what your questions are received by everyone so that people know what questions have already been asked. And when it's time for those in the front here to ask questions at the end of the presentation, I'll be walking around with this microphone to make sure that people in the room can hear, and then I'm going to ask DeMarcus to repeat that up here so that people on Zoom can hear as well. We are recording today's presentation, so it'll be available the next day or two on both the League's YouTube channel and the library's YouTube channel for future viewing. And now I'd like to welcome up Barbara Hoppy of the League of Women Voters of Columbia Boone County to introduce our speaker.
Thank you so much, Lauren. Williams in the library, they have been a great partner for our Lunch and Learn program for this whole year. This is our last program for the spring, and then we'll start again in September, but we don't have Lunch and Learn during the summer. But I'm really delighted that DeMarcus Thomas Brown came today to speak with us on violence prevention in Columbia. He is our first violence prevention administrator. And I think one thing really important in your qualifications is that DeMarcus is a lifelong Columbia resident, born and raised in Columbia. And I was thinking back when I first moved to Columbia in 1979, which may be before you were born, I'm guessing, that really there was often no deaths from guns, and then occasionally one or two. And so that has changed a lot, but Columbia has changed a lot, and the United States has changed a lot since then. We had 30,000 residents about 30,000 when I moved in 1979. Now we have over 120,000 residents, and the proliferations of guns in the United States and in Columbia has, exploded since 1979. So those are some factors that need to be and will be taken into consideration. But just a little more background on DeMarcus that I learned, and you might want to share more that I don't know, is that in addition to being a lifelong resident and having that important knowledge and perspective, he is a certified harm reduction specialist with the Missouri Credentialing Board, which allowed him to work on substance abuse intervention. He received training to address mental health first aid, intervention strategies related to substance use, and to identifying factors for gun violence. And prior to becoming the Office of Violence Prevention Administrator, he led organizations aimed at assisting formerly incarcerated people in Columbia, including serving as managing director of Into Action and program director for the Reentry Opportunity Center. He also served as a regional director of Good Dads, which aims to empower fathers to be actively engaged in their children's lives. So thank you, DeMarcus, for coming and sharing what you hope to do and accomplish in Columbia, and also what we can do to help you in that effort. Thank you.
papers and stuff over here. And so that's another I tell people that I was born at Boone Hospital, and when I was born, they bring the babies out and they stand the emblem on the foot of anybody born. So you don't have a choice. You have to be a Tiger fan. It's what they do, and so that is the case. Actually, a fun fact: my son and I share the same birthday. We were born in the same hospital, so that was special. Um, the Office of Violence Prevention for the Columbia, Missouri is due to us. We aim to build safer communities through collaboration and innovation. A lot of what I will talk about has to do with collaboration and innovation, and how we work together as Barbara mentioned. And so before that, just a little bit about me. This slide does not have my likeness in it for various reasons. But I was born to a single parent mother. My dad, my dad's a great guy, great individual, but he left when I was 3 years old. I remember that's one of my earliest memories of watching their scuffle and him leave. And I equated it with with actual joy because I thought the police lights were the lights we used to see at the carnival. Anybody remember the carnival used to be in the parking lot by what used to be Walmart and Kmart and all that? And I used to love when they come to town and then would hate when they would leave. And I equated the police lights to at a young age. Grew up right down the house we lived in my earliest memories where I remember seeing this happen was on Pendleton. It was, I think, 22 Pendleton, where my grandmother and grandfather lived in 19 Pendleton. So that's where I remember that was my stomping grounds. We would play around Pendleton, go down to like LaSalle, go around to Douglas Park, go across over to 6th Street. That's where my father's mother and father lived. And that was our area, the Pendleton, 6th Street, over by Judge Jr. Before the fence was there. You go up the hill, and we come back around Fairview over by Hickman and Washington. Those are my areas. We didn't fool with the people over at Unity. We was right there, but we didn't fool with them. That was a whole different area. Like we didn't fool with them. That was our area. That was their area. And then if scuffles would happen, you would see death steps because the people from Unity was right. But we related to all of them, so we related to the codes who were over there. But so my history here is very nuanced. As we will see with violence prevention, violence is very nuanced. My name, Thomas Brown, I'm not related to Thomas's or Brown, so complex trauma, right? My mom's not related to the man that she was given the last name of to cover some situations. My grandfather, who instituted Thomas, was running from the police and other factions in South Carolina and came to Columbia, so we don't even know who his people were. And so I'm not related to any of those people. That's the last name I bear, right? So I'm akin to complex trauma and transgenerational trauma. And I have an ACE score of 8. You can get a 10, I have an 8 on the ACE scores. So, adverse childhood experiences, things that happen to you that before the age of 18, this has a lot to do with sanctuary trauma and different things of that nature. But with the higher ACE score, you have like heart disease, diabetes, like health effects that can work within you. It's been proven to see with those higher ACE score. Also, you see more prone to substance use disorder, prone to risky behavior, which leads to violence and that could lead to health disparities and things of that nature. So yeah, a score of 8. And I always tell people you don't have to live to the score, right? So me standing here is a testimony of violence prevention. Office of Violence Prevention was established in 2024. The Office of Violence Prevention aims to coordinate and develop implementation and evaluation of prevention, intervention, community enrichment. When I'm asked Like, oh, how do you feel about the job being the first things? And people will use intervention and prevention simultaneously and interchangeably, and they're not interchangeable. Prevention has its own track work and intervention has its own track work. And then when you have the here and now, the intermediate, right? All of those are different areas that should be collaborated together, right? And so that's what we aim to do in this office, um, tasked with developing a broader, more comprehensive approach to community violence. You will hear me talk about PICOS, trauma-informed, community-oriented system of care. I will talk about that. This goes through, you can tie this to any area of that you're looking at trying to remedy, whether that's recovery, whether that's lack of community, whether that's substance use disorder. You can tailor community-oriented system of care, recovery-oriented system of care, a trauma, a you know, parentless oriented system of care. All of these, there's a holistic approach to that. And so I must say that I'm being borrowed right now from harm reduction training. I'm in the training right now, training with practitioner who's picking up my slack. So if I get too harm reduction need, just let me know. I'll try to back off the trauma informed. So we aim to orchestrate that. And then evidence-based, right? So data-driven approaches. People's perception becomes reality, but that does not mean that is reality. I can perceive that things are getting more expensive, but unless I go through and look at the trajectory of something and realize, like, yeah, eggs are getting more expensive, but soda, right? And so I could be griping about soda and saying how expensive the soda is, and someone's like, actually, eggs are going up, but you're talking about, so my perception has become my reality, but that does not mean it's reality. And so data-driven approach helps to fashion, even when we get to correlation, right? And causation. Causation and correlation, and y'all know this, right? We know there's some things that causal, like with an A score is a correlation of health disparities, but then there are causal things, right? So if my parental unit was a substance, had a substance use disorder, then if I'm born and then the doctors do blood work and I have substance in my blood and I have a substance use disorder growing up, we can see the causal effects, right? Versus the correlation of, hey, this person's uncle had a substance use disorder and this person, that see the separation. So evidence-based is really important when we're talking about violence, right? And reducing violence, promote safety, well-being for all residents. I love to talk about community enrichment. Sounds weird. My title is the Administrator of Office of Violence Prevention. I want to talk about community enrichment, right? Root causes. We can pick fruit from an apple tree all day long. Guess what? Those apples gonna grow again. I got one in my backyard. They're gonna grow again. They're gonna be a pain when you're mowing, and they might kick up and hit you. I mean, but until the root of that tree, picking that fruit is just gonna make me feel good that one day. But a couple months later, they'll be back. Apple blossoms are beautiful, by the way. I love those. They're fantastic. So just a little bit about the office. The Office of Violence Prevention, trauma informed. I don't think I can stress that enough. Trauma informed. Mental health. We are in a mental health crisis. I mean, when you hear recent stories where someone walked through someone else's backyard and they got a gun pulled on them because it was in the backyard and they someone else felt threatened, where a child is attacking a parent because of a perceived miscommunication and disrespect. I mean, that is, we have some triggers, right? And so untreated and undiagnosed trauma, depression, different things, that's mental health. So we have to have trauma informed. And then obviously there's a collaborative, synergistic approach to community engagement, intervention, and enrichment. And so I don't know what that is. Okay, where's the pointer? There we go. That there gives a great optic of what the office of glorified collaborator. I remember I want to say it was 2016. Andrew Grayball and the United Way had a bunch of service providers and different, everybody who's working in the field. And they had a kind of a carrot and stick approach. If we're funding you, you need to be here. So people showed up, and the thing, it was accountability. I mean, so we know all of these funds are going to these different organizations, but we still have these issues. So where's the disconnect? Is what the conference, if you will, was. The biggest disconnect that we found in that meeting was people didn't know each other. They had no idea other people existed. They had no idea. The people doing housing had no idea that the substance use disorder providers were doing what they're doing. They had no idea that Clarity Health Care was doing what they're. People just didn't know anybody else, but yet they had the same funding source, and really their work intersected in ways, right? And so the Office of Violence Prevention is a collaborative. We're the tie. We're the wheel, right? That helps. So if someone's saying, "Hey, they're going to get adjudicated, but we're going to need services afterwards," but we know who's doing services after. So actually, y'all should talk to each other. You'd be surprised who does not talk. Like I'll leave it at that, because I want to. You'd be surprised. Maybe not, but I was surprised who doesn't talk to each other. So with this slide, violence prevention strategies are most effective in communities where resident engagement is high and where there is ongoing collaboration among residents, businesses, and local stakeholders. So it takes all of us, right? So mission, vision, and purpose. This is the only slide I will holistically read, because these are very important. That one we pretty well know if we're into the city hall. But the mission is to reduce violence and its impacts by working collaboratively with community members, community-based organizations. There's a reason I don't say service organizations there. Community-based CBOs is I shorten it, but community-based organizations are those who are in the ground. They're in the work. They're not at the meetings. You know, they're 1, 2, 3 people working. They're not going to the meetings. They're on the merit, right? They're at Rice Road. They're down at McKee Street. Like they are they know the people, they know the shooters, they know the victims, they know the victors, they know what's going on, they know the Facebook, Instagram chatter, they know what's going on, they know the Snapchat's going on, they know the rap beef that's going on, they know who's about to come out. These are the ones who are on the ground, right? Community-based organizations. You get a message to them and they spread things, right? So that working with them and other key stakeholders to promote safety and healing. One of the saddest things for me, just in my work in Columbia, not just the Office of Violence Prevention, before getting here, was just how organizations who were getting major funding didn't know about the community-based organizations. And then they're getting funding and really choking out the trusted messengers from doing their work, because they're getting funding to try to do something. They're having to rebuild the will, and none of the people they're trying to work with look like the people that they got in their office. And the community-based organizations are the ones that suffer because they don't know they exist, as if people didn't know how to care for one another, right? It'd be like a teacher at my son's school thinking, for this individual, how can we get a parent? Because I mean, we're teaching them, but they need a parent. And then they start trying to fund up, how do we get this parent and a mother? We need to get one parent. Well, let's just like at the whole time, like, hey, I got this. Like, let's talk. Like, what y'all need from the parent? I'm here, right? Let's talk. That is the notion of people coming together. Because if we don't, we are not. People ask the services I'm doing out of office. I'm not recreating the wheel. There are plenty of services. How do we bolster, and how do we cover the gaps, right? So we'll get to that. Vision: Columbia is the best place for everyone to live, work, learn, and play. Purpose: to convene like-minded. Like-minded is huge. How can two agree? How can you walk together unless they agree, right? Like-minded partnerships that holistically address, and that is a stress word, holistically. We can't talk about someone learning if we're not going to talk about their belly. We can't talk about someone that has substance use if we're not talking about how their kids are doing. We can't talk about transportation if we're not going to talk about housing, right? Holistically, people need everything now. And so having everyone at the table, hopefully we can get people close to getting what they need now, right? Address root causes. Most of our root causes will be found in that holistically, right? The root causes, and could be antidotal, but the root causes of violence is not a gun. It's a fruit. It's not a root cause, right? Mentorship could be a root cause or lack thereof. Trauma has been identified in a lot of evidence-based practices of root causes, right? So identifying root causes of violence, specifically education, stability, health, both mental and physical, to disrupt communal and familial cyclical patterns that may perpetuate violence. One of the root causes can be conflict resolution. You have families feuding for 30 years, ain't never had nobody to get involved with conflict resolution. And say, why are we fighting? And the current generation, like, I don't know. We just told they told us we didn't like them. And so we took that. And it's like, no, let's talk about this. They don't even know why they're fighting. They just know that it's been like that. It's been funk on site since they've seen the other side of the family, right? And so conflict resolution, that could be a solve, right? All right. Tracy, how you doing? And so you go and post tell people that. So Office of Violence Prevention methodology. So there's a methodology built into the office. I will say I have a knack of building things. I love to build things. That's probably my main gift mix is building. The Range Opportunity Center, working with Dan and into action to build something that was going to be viable and work, and we did it, right? Into action, how do we further and build mechanisms that then gear towards sustainability, right? I get bored with maintaining, but I love building, right? So in 10 years, I'm like, hey, are you? Like, I'm not excited about this. But building mechanisms, right? So when we're building, we put in methodology. Intervention is short term, prevention, long term, and then community enrichment. Intervention is short term, prevention is long term, community enrichment is transformative. And so the training. There's a reason there's a train on the slide. Because the methodology that we're developing in this office is the aspect of the train already leaving the station. This office was developed in 2024. The violence in that train left the station a long time ago. We're not going to be able to get, so the train containing cars filled with proponents to violence left the station many miles ago, with each railroad tie each crossing, railroad tie crosses, right? The trains cross hundreds of railroad ties in motion. Each crossing is too much. You listen to the news, right? I listen to KGLU, listen to the news this morning at 8. They listen to it at noon. Well, we can't listen to it, but you can listen to it at 1, I believe, is on there, 5. And you hear these situations, right? Each one is too much. The train has left the station. We can no longer stop the train from leaving the station, but hopefully we can prevent the locomotive from crossing successive ties by attempting to divert. How do we divert, right? And contain and minimize. So if we can divert, contain, and minimize the effects of the current crossings, that is called intervention. Right? We're intervening into the train leaving the station. We are also tasked with slowing the train in order to get us time to hopefully get out in front of the procession to build in measures that will eventually stop the train. And that's called prevention, right? Getting out in front of prevention is not reactionary. It's planning to get out in front of to stop the train's progression so that we will not have the successive railroad tie crossings, right? And lastly, once the train has been successfully halted, we can then remove the proponents to violence and repurpose the train cars, communal use, and enjoyment. This is called community enrichment. Train stop, no more railroad tie crossings, and we're repurposing the very locomotive for enrichment. And hence the High Line. This was the High Line. This is in New York City. It exists. I've been there. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. It's fantastic. It was not always that way. This was something that was used for a train crossing, and it was very highly dangerous to be in the High Line. 500 deaths since its building, and they abandoned it. And so then, not only were there deaths from people getting hit by trains, collisions, things like that, you had drug poisons and overdoses that would happen there. You had aggravated assault, different things that would happen there because of the covering of what was there. And so they decided, hey, let's get together and do something beautiful here. And they did. It is beautiful. It's gorgeous. Like you go up there, you feel like you're in an oasis in the city, and it's called the High Line. So now they have 8 million visitors a year that go to the High Line in New York City. 500 deaths to 8 million visitors a year. That's called community enrichment. That's transforming the proponents, if you will, that to violence, um, and bringing enrichment. And that's the methodology that we have. Office of Violence Prevention. I will tell you that the Office of Violence Prevention could have been established in 1986. That was the year I was born. To do urban planning in Columbia, to help with development. Really, this is not an initiative because crime is so high. This is an initiative for planning. We have been susceptible to different ones in office. So this is why voting is important. Different ones, legal women voters, right? I'm talking about that because I'm here with y'all. Like, this is what y'all do. This is why it's important. If we do not have strategic pre-planning in our elected officials, they are causing us harm. And the inability for elected officials in Columbia, Missouri to pre-plan when a city is starting to grow and to have different ones who came, sociologists, anthropologists, different victimology study, that they come, and those who study housing and have said, hey, y'all, people want to be here. And it's not going to probably go away. You're making Forbes lists and all that. What is your plan to make sure as Columbia grows, everyone is able to grow with it in a healthy, holistic manner? And a lot of the answers were, well, we'll see what happens. As you may, if you have a yard or you do landscaping, my wife is in the gardening. That's a lot of work. I help. I assist. I will assist. But if she just puts all these things out there and thinks, oh, it'll take care of itself, it ain't gonna work because it's gonna grow. The stuff is gonna grow, and it's gonna take on a life of its own. But in pre-planning, if she's out there, she's weeding. But I can't tell you the difference between a weed and a plant. All of it's beautiful to me. So I'm like, bring it on. It's still cute, but she's got to be able to make sure she can't have me in there because I'm gonna be growing weeds, and she's trying to grow flowers and produce, right? And so it has to be pre-planning. I can tell you, there's an article written in 2008 where they were talking about, and actually Wanda Faye Tapp Elbert was the context of the article because she's talking about gangs. And they were mad at her. There was a lawsuit because Wanda Faye talked about gangs. And how dare you talk about gangs in Columbia? And she's like, look, this is stuff going on. So they wrote an article in 2008 and they began to go through what was happening in 1995. Y'all, this was happening in 1995. You had conflicting and feuding groups in Columbia in 1995. And they then asked the police chief at the time, what they were going to do. And they said, we don't know what to do. We're just going to focus on the good. You cannot do that. And so that was 1995. 2008, Wanda Faye's like, look, we got problems. And it's compounded because now we don't just have two groups, we have multiple groups. And they're worse than what the groups were in 1995. I remember those groups. I looked up to some of those people in 1995. I remember I could say some names, and y'all, and some who've been around would know some of the names. I'm not going to say it because they deserve their dignity, and we don't glorify things. But I remember the groups, right? And they had code, they had ethic, right? They would beef on site in a place where there were not public, consumption and things of that nature. They weren't just shooting at parks. Well, when those leaders went away and those groups began to break off, that code began to go away. And then you had people, and then you had leadership. I remember in 1995, you can go down to Douglas Park and act like you wanted to. The OGs were going to say something to you about it. They had something to say. They down there playing dominoes on the push. You better not go down there. You messing up they dominoes game and they got stuff going. Go down there if you want to. The OGs going to pull you to the side and like, hey, young blood, you better get it together or you're going to have a different problem in your hands. And you either course corrected or you left, right? That didn't happen because then when you have splintering and you get different ones, there's no code. No, there's no. So Wanda Faye was saying, look, we got an issue. They brought in the man's last name was Carlisle. They brought in the sociologist who came to look because no one wanted to say gang, so they're saying groups. I get it, I get the different sides. So they brought in the sociologist who was like, I can tell you that whatever y'all want to call them, you call them whatever you want, but until opponents, the things that are the need for these groups, you are going to have issues. They talked about housing. They talked about community. They talked about predominantly Black areas that used to commune together that were being broken up by different entities to move people places and to build their infrastructures, and that being a for violence, right? Because you are breaking up communal institutions, right? And they talked about these things. They talked about the education and the lack of adequate housing. This is an article. I would email it to people if they wanted it. It was written in 2008, a great article. And they asked the council at the end of the article, "What are you guys going to do with this?" Well, we'll see what happens. It's quoted. We'll see what happens. Well, we know what happens. We're living in what happens, right? And so we must plan, right? So I applaud Mayor Buffalo for saying enough's enough. Not to do something about that 3-year-old getting killed that is dead and gone, but to say, hey, we must be strategic and have a sight on this and have a pulse on this to get out in front of, hopefully, and to remedy and mend. She deserves the credit for that because others did not and would not. So, and not because I want a job. Like I told them, I would do this for free. And I didn't share that, but I will revert to that. I can hear through this paper right here is why I do what I do. This is 47 individuals that have died in Missouri. These are relatives of mine, little cousins of mine, schoolmates of mine. Since 2007. Then I started to add who also were taken from our communities, right? And so it was a double-edged sword. Just one of them. It's too much. But y'all got 47 of these names. And I stopped adding to it. I just stopped. I could have went front and back, but I just stopped. Because this was enough. And so when I say I would do it's not because it's a thankless, easy job. It's because this affects me deeply. I don't get the news article in the morning. I get a call from my morning talking about, hey, my cousin got shot. I get a call saying, hey, so-and-so son just got. And I'm expected to act, right? What you gonna do? Oh, I guess we're gonna go over and see what's going on. Like that's the notion of this is why I do what I do. Right. And so yes, this is not to have a job, but we must look at community enrichment and get out in front of what's going on in Columbia. Because Columbia is a great place to live, work, and play and learn. I graduated from Columbia College, a proud alumni, got my bachelor's and my master's there. They can't get rid of me, and I love them dearly. But we have things to talk about there. My grandmother sold her house. It was right there on the corner of Range Line and Wilkes. Anybody know what's on the corner of Range Line and Wilkes now? Range Line and Wilkes, on the corner of Range Line and Wilkes is a soccer field. Columbia College soccer field. She sold her house to Columbia College. They told her her relatives would be able to go to school for free. I can tell y'all, I can see my student loan debt. I did not go to school for free. She didn't get it in writing. So we talk about violence, right? We talk about, so that was a home she owned. She was the last person I knew. This was my great grandmother who owned a house on that side of the family until my wife and I bought our house. Nobody else owned the house. Didn't even know how to get at 17, had no idea what it would be like to own a house. Didn't even know what you had to do, right? Was not a concept. On my other side of the family, my mother's side of the family, Miss Mary Ratliff knows them, the Bushes and the Brown. My grandmother was a homeowner, sold her house. None of her kids owned a home. None of her kids. My mom's home. Well, no, actually, I had an uncle, but he moved to Arizona, so he did. We had 1 out of 6 kids who owned a home. One generation. So when we talk about violence, we don't talk about those things. We just talk about gunshots. No, that is violence, right? Because that leads to something. You can be moved at will at the what's gonna happen? If I go from Derby Ridge to elementary, I went to West Boulevard, they said I got kicked out. That's up for debate. As long as my mom's still living, that's up for debate. So West Boulevard. So with the Blue Ridge. Then they built Derby Ridge. So I went to Derby Ridge because we had to move, right? And so I went to three. Then thank goodness we stayed out with the Lane, then with the Oakland, went to Hickman, right? Right? Is there anything else? That's right. That's right. Sam Walton, which I know. Ain't nobody hating on Rockbridge. Just saying, like, no. We love them both. That was before battle was around. But that is violent. That child is violent. Boulevard. And it should not be on the teacher to try to keep up with it to Derby Ridge. There should be a file that follows that child. And so what happens? They get left behind. You know why I know this? Because that was me. I was 14 years old and could not do long division. Could not do multiplication tables. Could not do my language skills and all that. I could not spell unless I could write, which is a problem because that's hand-eye coordination and all those different things, right? And so only reason we found it is because my algebra teacher saw me mimicking. I could only do the homework if she showed me what to do. Then I could do what she did. And she thought it was brilliant. And I'm like, I'm just trying to say like that you can't long divide, you can't know your multiplication tables, but you can mimic what I do and understand just in this moment, but you have no sustenance to sustain to understand why you're doing this. So geometry was a struggle because I couldn't share my work. I don't know, a proof of what? Like I couldn't do, but I could mimic, right? So I was visual learner. And so they caught that. 15. So when we were doing the problems and we would get and mine would just sit there and they say I was obstinate. I didn't value authority and all. No, I don't know how. Now, and we're not at West Boulevard. No, I don't know how to do this. So you think I'm a hard. What happens? You produce a hard child. That's violence. But we want to talk about gunshots. That's violence. When you used to growing up on you get shipped all the way out to High Quest when there wasn't nothing out there. Wasn't nothing out there, Derby Ridge. It was all these I ain't never seen woods like that in Columbia. We moved out there, all this stuff. We was hearing sounds we ain't never heard. Wait, what is this? Oh, where you bring us to? This is crazy. But it was, and we didn't grow. And so did we fight? Yeah, we fought. Everybody. And it's Section 8 housing. What they think was gonna happen. If you don't plan for something, if you don't pre-plan that, it's on the administration to pre-plan these things, or you're gonna have widespread violence. Can y'all guess what happened? Look at the calls. Hotspots, still a hotspot. Bodie and Derby Ridge, still a hotspot. That's violence. So our numbers. Still check. So and those are small. I'm gonna have to fix this, and I try to get too much of this slide. But when people talk about violence and what's going on in the community, we have to look at real numbers, right? And so in 2021, this says up here, we had 465 violent crime incidents, making it the highest in a decade. Highest in a decade. So 645. 2022 saw a decrease to 613 incidents. 2022, pulling down a little bit. Not too much, but a little bit. 2023 further declined to 498, a 16.86% drop from the previous year. Now I can tell you, I get following this number because they're like, well, you don't know what all that is. I don't care about what all that is. We need to find out what that is because that something happened. Whether it's declassification, I believe there's a confluence of things that because we talk about intervention, prevention, and the intermediate. I believe preventative measures started to pay off. Anybody remember strategic areas that we had? I was a part of those meetings. Ward 1, ma'am, your husband was a council member in Ward 3. I remember going to his meetings. Ward 3 was on fire. Still, and you know what? Still is on fire. It's a big award, right? It was Ward 1, 2, and 3. We went to 2 and 3, and we sent other people to Ward 1, and we all get together after the meeting. And I can tell you, synergy was starting to happen. And that was 2018. I believe a payoff happened even when they removed programs because you started prevention. You started communities, even though they didn't own, so you had neighborhood organizations coming together, talking about what's going on in the community. I think we've seen some payoff. We also saw some declassification, but we also had entities that came to Columbia that weren't here previously. Powerhouse came to Columbia. That was huge, right? We had the Reentry Opportunity Center started in 2020. And so we have different things where we're engaging people coming back in to the community. So we have a lot. Heather Harlan was talking, no, but she was. We started some of the Boone County Coalition, Boone County Overdose Response Coalition, and those of the like that were awesome. And so we're doing we have data analysis right now. The national average, the national drop was 3%. Columbia deserved a pat on the back. 3% was the national drop. We got 16.86% and didn't nobody say nothing about it. You know why they didn't say anything about it? Because they didn't know. Because if you're not strategic, you can't measure what you treasure. So if they don't treasure it, they're not measuring it. And so nobody knew. The mamas did. Grandmas did. Fathers, uncles, daughters, sons, they did. Teachers did. I guarantee you, the teachers like, oh, God did a miracle with these kids. Y'all ever been on a field trip? Go on a field trip with one of the schools. I've been on a couple of them. Look, I don't. These teachers deserve all kind of stuff. Y'all, these teachers are not parents; they're teachers. Go on a field trip. You'll find out real quick how this is what's going on. These different legislators that want to sue our school system and talk down about the administrator. Get your tail in one of these classrooms and then talk about some administration. Go in there and deal with. I've taken kids to the bathroom. I said, hey, I'm not certified, but I'm like, I'm nowhere close to y'all in this bathroom. These ain't my kids, but the teachers can you help? 25 kids out here at the pumpkin patch. This one's crying because he got to go to the bathroom. He's on himself, and they're gonna make fun of him, and we're gonna have violence. So it was nonsense. Nonsense. I'm trying to be there with my niece, right? Like we gotta understand these things are violence. Ain't no way LeBron James making millions of dollars while our teachers barely being able to pay rent. It's terrible. This is a pathology. Thank you so much. I need that. I need that. I appreciate it. So we're gonna run through this. So total violent crime in 2024, we had an uptick of 569. That's too much. From 2023. A total violent crime now currently 498. U.S. crime rate is 364. Don't let people fool you. Challenge your resources. 364 per 1,000 people, 100,000 people, right? So you got to add the 31,000 onto that. So it's like, oh, Columbia is so violent. Add the other 1,000. Aggregate your data, but these people don't even know what aggregate data means. So I'm just saying, we got to be careful on agendas that further demonize what we're trying to fix, right? So, what I will mention about this real quick as I move forward is youth violence. 184 of 645 incidents in 2021 were 18 to 17, but something happened in 2023. Moved to 18 to 24 in 2023. 2025 was 24 to 34. The math doesn't matter. So it's not the kids got older. Interventions. Something happened. What's going on? Like what? Did Lonnie and Julian get involved in that? What happened? Was Ray Hall them? Like, were people actually focusing and engaging youth? We don't know. But something happened because the age went up. So now we're dealing with interpersonal violence, different things like that. Domestic violence, that is violence. People don't want to talk about domestic violence. Some of the people who talk about gun violence are actually causing domestic violence. All of it's violence, right? These are things that cause violence. Okay. So Strategic objective, community engagement, violence disruption, youth engagement. And youth engagement is not the youth being invited to come sit here. It's them driving. Anybody been to 4-H, the Adventurers Club 4-H? The youth run that show. I went last night and I was like, I was amazed. I took my kids with me. They had the robot and all that. And the youth are running the show. The parents are just there to assist. The parents are doing what we would tell the youth to do, and the youth are there and they're leading. They have their own board and they're going through an agenda. Young kids, we need to engage these youth, not tell them to come and sit and not be heard. No, you come and lead. Help us, right? And policy advocacy. We have too many guns on the street. In our state, people don't want to hear, oh, it's not easy to get a gun. Miss me with that. If they pass this agenda that you can be 18 to get a gun, we are furthering things. Ain't no way. Do you know what I would? At 18 years old, I did not need no gun. I need to be able to have to go through the channel of getting illegal guns like I had to, and these guns barely work. The guns they can get now, y'all know that these gun shops get robbed to get an insurance write-off, right? They get robbed. There's no accountability on them getting robbed and their guns disappearing. No accountability. They get the payoff from these, and then these guns end up in cars, right? That are unlocked on the streets where you can just get in. I don't know about you, but like, it's not adding up. We talk to the shooters, we talk to the ones who are in these groups, and they know these drop-offs. They get Snapchat that, hey, drop off over here, came from the store. There's a reported break-in. We don't ever find nobody. Look at the story. Go look at the stories. They write them all the time. They talk. Go find where they found the perpetrator broke into these. Go find them. You ain't gonna find them. Go find them. You're not gonna find them. There are agendas and things that we need to make sure we're doing advocacy so that we maintain Columbia being a place people love, everyone can enjoy and live. So I'm hearing through evidence-based initiatives. So we do have some solutions. There are solutions. Group violence intervention. This is a whole thing. Why do we say group? Because not everybody identifies as a gang. There are groups. There are people that say, I'm not a gang, but me and my friends over here, we hang out. We're not a gang, but we all like this Pokemon, and so we hang out. Like, for real, like, we not a gang, but we all came up from over here, and our parents all used to get together. So we not a gang, but we all from Africa. We got to protect each other. So these are groups, right? So group violence intervention, and it comes with the norm of an approach to which law enforcement, communities, and offenders can work together, reset relationships, and recognize and expand upon common norms, interests, and goals. We got a community. We can't have law enforcement about the people they are trying to help enforce. And we cannot have people who are being enforced upon who do not know from the law enforcement agencies that come into their community. We have to build a communal norm so that there's a knowing of one another and there's trusted messengers so that we can see, right? I'm not anti-police. People try to, I'm not anti-police. There are some people that need to be locked up. If I didn't get intervention in my life, I would need to be locked up. I was walking around telling people if my mama ever died, I'm gonna kill everybody. And I meant it. If I didn't get intervention, I needed to be in somebody's jail cell. But I got intervention, right? Focus deterrence. That is, hey, we will do something different, or just know they know who you are. And oh, by the way, these communities will not be bullied anymore. When my mother's talking about daughters and grandsons outside to play because people are shooting, we need to do something about those people that are causing those kids to stay inside. That's called accountability. It ain't called snitching. It's only snitching if you're out there doing it too. Now, if you're out there doing it too, don't be calling the police. You're doing the same stuff. This is what you get. You reap what you sow. But if you are a resident and a community resident, you owe it to your and your children and your family to make sure you hold people. That's nonsense. Kids should not be afraid to be outside. All right, so cognitive intervention. That is part of the focus deterrence, right? Cognitive intervention is, I don't know to do something different. Who's gonna show me to do something different? I needed someone to show me something different. Don't tell me to go up. Look, I didn't know about buying a house. I needed somebody to show me how. Behavioral theory, right? Not therapy, because we're not practitioners. Theory. I need someone to walk with me. I'm about to slap the heck out of this person. They're like, no, here's what you do. What happened? They disrespect me. How they disrespect you? They looked at me and then walked on past. Bro, they might not even see you. Oh, they saw me. I know they saw me standing up. They don't see me. Look at me. big, man. Like I'm saying, like, hey, you see that pole right there? I ain't worried about that pole. Yeah, well, they couldn't see. And to be able, okay, let's go grab them. Answer yourself, hit them, don't talk. Hey, stand over. How you doing? Man, I see me. Why would you do that? Man, you know your grandma was talking about. I ain't even been over in months. Oh, for real. Like that, really. These are situations, people getting shot behind those situations. I kid you not. Those situations. Road rage, you cut me off. I'm shooting you. Like that happened. That happened here a couple times. These are this intervention to be able to de-escalate and conflict resolution when you are fight, freeze. You're not doing none of that, especially if you're prefrontal cortex. Like you're not doing none of that. It's go time. You're not thinking about the after effects. I'm trying to hurry up. So neighborhood-based outreach and investment. I'm calling this group no cap, like the young people. So I'm trying to get in their good graces. No cap. What no cap means is it's a neighborhood organization that we're calling a pre-council. You may not own, but you got power, right? You're going to tell us what we need to do in your neighborhood, and we're going to do it. We're going to do it. I will quit my job if we do another thing where we telling people we're going to do something, we don't do that again. Accountability works both ways for the city and for the constituents. They know I will quit. Like we got to do it. They asked for a child care center and an after school program out at Derby. They didn't do it. And one of those kids shot and killed somebody on Dove and now is in jail for the rest of his life, seemingly rest of his life, because we was asking for him when he was 6. 10 years later, what you think he's going to be doing? And that poor mom, right? So we got to be held accountable. So they have power. They are invested in their neighborhoods. They may not own, but they have power. Where else is this working? A lot of places. A lot of places. Y'all can look these up, whether it's Office of Violence Prevention or it's Missouri Foundation for Health with Charleston, Missouri, and things giving funding to these interventions and all this. Mission St. Louis and East West Initiative and Save More Lives. I mean, it's going to Springfield. It's going on everywhere. We should be jealous. We should be upset. Like, why are we just now coming onto this? And key performance indicators, which I will hurry past. But we are holding ourselves accountable. This office will be held accountable. Reduction in violent crimes, increased community engagement and trust, coordination and intervention, regular data analysis, advisory and neighborhood boards. That's that DOCAP, right? What y'all can do: encourage, let me see that there, provide feedback, suggestions, provide avenues for community members, stay informed, and unify. This is a us problem. It's purple. Actually, it's more than purple because of libertarians and all that. Like, man, so it's whatever that color is if you add all of it together. But it's that, right? It's all of us. And you know, this is not partisan. Anybody gets partisan has an alternative motive and a different agenda. It's not to see enrichment. And that's, I gotta say that. It's easier to build strong children than broken men. And that's what we aim to do, is build strong children, resiliency. And we mitigate with broken men, so we intervene. Thank you. Right, first question, and I'm sorry, as y'all can tell, I get a little passionate about this. It's a subject to be passionate. Looking at these moms and different ones when we go do the visuals, right? Being at the casket of a 16-year-old and the potential that seemingly lost, right? But I appreciate y'all time. So question is, how can community groups such as the one I belong to, Moms Demand Action, oh, come on, moms, assist and support the goals of your office? First off, by what y'all are already doing, right? Like I said, we're not here to recreate the wheel. There are groups out here working and are doing a fantastic job, and we just need the synergy. So we need what you've gathered. We need what you've seen, and we also need what you're lacking to be brought to the table, so that not just the city, but for all of the organizations can hear that and actually work to see if we need to cover gaps. But we are not remiss we would be remiss to not give praise where praise is due for these groups that are out here in the fight. So Another question, did that answer the question? Okay. Can you ensure that law enforcement in Columbia wears uniforms and does not cover their faces when interacting with the public? I am not boss at all. I am not I work with them, love them dearly, but I'm sure Jill does not want them wearing masks unless it's a threat of some sort. I, I can have a conversation with Jill, but I cannot ensure uh, anything goes on other than a conversation with Jill and Matt and the team over there. Just know that they work hard to keep their people safe and to do what they do for the community as well. I, I'm not, as I said, I'm not a police hater, and what they've done in some of these situations that nobody else saw, they didn't get heralded for, is a shame because we've had some officers who put everything on the line out here to serve the most vulnerable. So that answer. Yep.
Was almost every police officer disrespected her. Almost every white person I knew said, why do we need that? And almost every non-white person I knew said, what are you gonna do, you know? So do you have any thoughts about reducing those kinds of tensions across, I guess what you would call racial and privilege lines?
Yes, sir. Great question, by the way. Thank you for that. As y'all can see, sometimes I forget I'm black. And I forget because everything I do is black. Like I don't. It's not a thing for me. I'm not upset. I'm black. I'm black and I'm proud, right? And getting into rooms and things where people and agendas show up to separate one versus the other. I tell people I don't have a guilty by association. The person who tells me not to talk to someone, the other, is the one that's guilty. And so collaboration should, as it works in the true meaning of collaboration, we need to come to the table and understand that we have an issue and we have a problem and we have a job to do. And if we can't leave all the other stuff out, we're not fit to be in position to try to bring aid. And I'll stand 10 toes down on that. If we can't do that, there's a lot of rooms where we don't agree on a lot of things, but we see solutions. We need solutions to problems. We come in there to solve problems. And that needs to happen. Thank you for that. And it's accountability, right? Um, I'm not on Facebook. And there's a reason I'm not on Facebook. I got a job to do. My job's really big, right? Tell them to get a job. Tell them to get out here and come to some of these vigils. Tell them to come to these funerals. Tell them to come bring food to these moms who their breadwinner went into the ground. Tell them to get out here and go to these PTA meetings. Tell them to get in the community. If you ain't in there, get out from behind the keyboard. You are wasted if you're doing that stuff. We got a job. I don't see none of that. I do not see it. And thank you so much for that comment, Pat. Don't threaten my job. I got a job to do. I ain't worried about it. I'm not worried about them.
Marcus,
Thank you.
for uh, sharing so much, a lot more to learn. So we'll be keeping in touch, hopefully engaging and helping. And I'm sure inviting you back again in a year or our next session, yeah, to see and learn more and how we as a community can engage. So again, this is our last lunch and learn for the spring, and then we'll start again in September. Thank you, Lauren Williams and the library, for being great partners. And thank you for your work and your passion.
Thank you.